Hey everyone, welcome to Northfork Tactical. I'm Noah, and today we've got a couple of things that we're going to do. So I'm going to be doing a build today. I'm putting together a 16-inch AR-15. The completed upper is from Wolfpack Armory. The color is Gray Wolf, and I've got a 6-hour Romeo 5 mounted on there, along with a Vortex 3X magnifier. The lower receiver is an 80% arms. I milled it here using the 5D Tactical Router Jig Pro and my router of choice, the Bosch Plunge router, which I have another video on that I'll link. You can check it out. We got a pretty clean cut on this lower. I'm pretty happy about that. I've got an Elftmann drop-in trigger, 3.5 pound match trigger. And it comes with a stainless steel floor plate that gives bearing for the 2 set screws inside there, which puts some resistance on the trigger pins. It just helps keep it in place. And I've also got some Strike Industries anti-walk trigger pins. These are definitely my preference because there's no hardware. I've had stripped screws on anti-walk trigger pins before when you go to change something, and believe me, you don't want that. I've got a magazine catch right here with a Timber Creek Outdoors extended magazine button. Got a Bravo Company Mod 3 BCM Gunfighter Mod 3 grip. I'm not sure who this safety selector is from, but it's just a basic safety selector. I'm using a Strike Industries extended bolt catch. I also have Strike Industries takedown and pivot pins, and Aero Precision buffer tube, and this is probably my favorite. This is the JP Enterprises silent captured buffer spring. These things are really nice. If you've ever had the feeling that there's a pogo stick inside your gun when you're firing it, that's because of your crappy buffer spring assembly. This thing is really, really nice. I've got an MFT minimalist buttstock. I'm going to use a Rise Armament nickel boron bolt carrier group and a Wolfpack Armory ambidextrous charging handle. First thing I'm going to do is install the magazine release. This arm goes into the slot there. Spring goes over, and push the button on. Give it a couple of turns. You're going to reach a point to where it won't turn anymore. You're going to need a tool of some sort to push the button in and then rotate the bar on the other side of the release. A few turns, that is just right. I'm going to wait to put the button on because I don't want it obstructing my trigger pins. Next, I'm going to install the takedown pin. So you've got a hole in the end of the receiver here. You're going to want to drop your spring down inside that hole and then put the detent in with the little pointy side facing up. Now, there's a lot of tools that are made for doing this. This one is the easiest one to me. So I'm just going to push with the takedown pin into the detent while I push the pin into the hole, and then you're good. Okay, that's it. Next, I'm going to install the bolt catch, and that consists of the catch itself, a roll pin, a spring, and a plunger. The first thing you're going to want to do is start your roll pin into the hole, right? Because it's a real pain if you're holding on to the spring and everything while you're trying to set or start your roll pin, okay? So if you have a vise block, that works great. That's what I'm going to set up right now. You're going to set your receiver into the vise block, the magazine release, will hold it in place. I suggest buying yourself a set of roll pin punches. This set is by Wheeler. Before I drive this, I'm going to put some blue tape on the side of the receiver so I don't scratch it while I'm setting the pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the roll pin, set it in the hole, just enough to stabilize it with the roll pin punch. And I'm going to give it a couple of taps just to set it and get it started in there. Okay, I'm just seeing it start to come through. So now I'm going to take the spring, set it in there, push the plunger in behind it, take the bolt catch and compress the assembly. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and tape the bolt catch in to compress the spring. This makes it so you don't have to hold three things at once. Now I can come around and set my pin. Once you've driven it a couple of good shots, you can remove the tape. And the bolt catch is going to stay there because it's already held by the pin. Now I can come back around and continue driving. There's my bolt catch. Next, I can install the trigger. So I'm going to drop this floor plate in here, and I wanted to show you on the back of the Ultimate trigger, this floor plate is supposed to sit just like this. The larger part of the plate goes to the front. I drop the trigger in on top of it. Now I can line up my anti-walk pins. I prefer to have the catch for the pins go on the side of the receiver that has the bolt catch. So the way these Strike Industries anti-walk pins work is the pins have a slot on them. And I'm going to put this end of the catch over the pin, and then it slides into that slot. The other side has a corresponding slot that this opening is going to hold on to. So that's going to sit right on top of there. And this is fairly tight. So what I do to drive these in is use a small screwdriver and set it right on the edge. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of tape there to minimize any scratching. And then I can just take my little flat screwdriver, and one tap generally sets it. Now my trigger is in. So to tighten these up, there's 2 Allen screws down inside here. Those 2 right there with the spring wires just inside of them. Those need to be seated evenly until you get some tension on them, so they're going to push up on the floor plate. So I have an Allen wrench here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the first one until I feel the floor plate, and then back off just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. I'm going to turn it until I feel the floor plate and back off a little bit. And that allows me to flip the receiver over and adjust that floor plate so it's about equal in the opening. I don't know if you can see that, but I can move that stainless floor plate around. Right, and I want to get it to where it's just equal in the opening. Now I'm going to tighten the first screw, and then I'll tighten the second. And I want these kind of snug, so I'm going to put about as much tension as I can put on this short arm of the Allen key. Then I can move the wires over the tops of the Allen screws. And my trigger is extremely secure. Next, the grip and the safety are a component that need to be installed in a certain sequence, because there's a detent and a spring that holds the safety in place, and that spring and detent are held in by the grip. The spring goes inside that hole right there. So we can turn the receiver to the side, and with the Elftman trigger, I'm going to show you there's the bar back in there, all the way in the back. What I'm looking at is this piece right here. That gets in the way, see it, of the safety being put in its hole. So you half cock the trigger, and it goes down. See that? See, it pops up. That little arm right there. If I half cock the trigger, it drops out of the way. If you continue to bring the hammer back and set the hammer, it's going to come up again. So you want to leave it right there. Then I can install the safety. And then I'm going to drop the detent in. This one kind of looks like a little bullet. I'm going to drop it in with the pointy side down in the hole right there. Okay. Now with the grip, I'm going to put the spring in the grip, and holding it sideways, I'm going to bring the grip in so it's flush with this leg of the back of the trigger guard right here of the receiver. And I'm just going to push it straight up, making sure that the spring lands in the hole on top of the detent. Next, the screw goes in the bottom of the grip, all the way down to the bottom. This one is a flathead screw, and a large screwdriver will set it in. Okay. All right. That part is done. I can go ahead and put my magazine release extended button on there now. That's real simple. It's just two little Allen screws on the end of the button. The next assembly we're going to install is the buffer tube, end plate, rear takedown pin, detent, and spring. These are all an assembly as well. So I want to note on the end of the buffer tube, there's a small lip. On some it's more pronounced than others, but right here it flares out just a little bit. Hopefully you can see that. All right, that little lip right there. Okay, it's like a little ridge that comes out on the bottom. That's meant to hold your buffer spring retainer pin. I don't use one because I use the JP Enterprises silent captured buffer spring assembly, and it doesn't require that you use that pin. So if you are using a different buffer assembly, you're going to want to put the spring and pin in this hole right here first. And then as you bring the buffer tube around, on this pass right here, I would compress it slightly, and then the buffer tube is going to sit on top of that pin and keep it held in place, okay? If it's like this, it's not going to hold on to it. So once you have crossed that opening, that's as far as you want to go with your buffer assembly. Okay, next, what I'm going to do is set the takedown pin in its hole, and I'm going to try and face the slot back towards the buffer tube. There's the hole right there where you're going to drop the spring and detent in, so you want this slot to face that hole. I'm going to set that in there. Now I'm going to drop the detent in the hole and the spring behind it. Now we're going to bring the buffer back around, and you can use, at least I use, my fingernail to compress that spring and just tuck it underneath the end plate. Once the end plate is squared up with the end of the receiver, look at the spring in there and make sure that it's straight. If it's not, I give it a little nudge with a flathead screwdriver just to make sure that it's in its correct spot and that it's not going to bend or fold over or crimp. And then I compress the end plate against that spring with my hand. I'm going to hold it there with my thumb while I thread the castle nut down, also by hand, until it's tight. And now this assembly is complete. I can push the takedown pin out and it doesn't come out because it's held in place by the detent and spring, okay? Next, I'm going to tighten my castle nut with an armorer's wrench. And again, this works best if you have the receiver held in a vise block so you can really get some torque on the castle nut. Okay, the receiver is held in place. These 3 teeth on your armorer's wrench are going to fit in the notches of your castle nut back here. I'm going to make sure that it's in, give it a little rotation. You just want it so it's snug. So the next thing I can do is install my buffer. I'm gonna arm the hammer, and the buffer slides in just like this. Push down on the hammer. Next, I'm going to install the buttstock. The buttstock is fairly straightforward. It slides in over the buffer tube. And in order to get this in all the way, there's a pin inside here. That moves up and down when I compress this lever right here. And that's so you can adjust the length of your buttstock. And that pin is going to prevent me from sliding this on any further than this. In order to get it all the way in, there's a hole in the top of the stock that's lined up directly on top of that pin. You can take any tool that you can fit down there I'm going to use this flathead screwdriver. I'm just going to push it in. I'm going to hold onto the receiver here. I'm going to put the buttstock against my chest. I will push down on the button, and you can see it. You can see the assembly compress because this lever is going to go down. So then you push it forward as you compress the pin, and it should slide right on. So there we go. The last thing to do here is install the bolt carrier group and the charging handle into the upper receiver. I'll put a little bit of lube. I always want to lube anywhere that you're getting metal to metal contact. Your hammer slides against there every single time this bolt carrier group goes in and out. Right on that surface. I like to put a decent amount of lube there. Couple shots in there. The gas rings are. A little bit for the firing pin. All right. And the charging handle, give it a little bit on the edges here and on the top surface. The charging handle is going to fit right inside, right there. Those little edges there that stick out, those key right into the upper receiver at a specific spot. If you turn it over, you can see it. And then you can set your bolt carrier group right inside there. The one thing you need to make sure of is that the bolt is out and your cam pin is lined up underneath the gas key. The whole thing should slide in real nice. Now I'm going to open up my takedown pin. We have a completely assembled AR-15. Hope you like this video. Thanks for watching. The next one, you're going to see us out at the range shooting this thing.